So this could definitely be my most controversial suggestion yet. Does rugby need to lose the flankers? It's a radical solution to make rugby more exciting. We've been tinkering around, trying to change the laws, trying to change little bits of rugby to make it a better product, but things aren't really working out. Is this the way to go? Now, first up, I'm not saying 100% this is what should happen. It's just a really interesting suggestion that I've been thinking about. I have raised a bit before in the comments. Some of you guys have said maybe this is the way to go, and I thought, let's not sit on this, let's get it out there and see what you guys think. Now, rugby needs to be more attractive. We know that. It wants to be more entertaining, more free-flowing, better running rugby, more tries. That's the way to get more people into the game, to get more eyes into the game. Now, of course, we want to preserve certain things in rugby that make it rugby, but at the same time, if rugby stands still, then other sports will overtake it. We see the battle in certain countries, say in Australia, between Rugby League and Rugby Union. Mark Nwanga has gone to Rugby League. That's a massive loss. Just signs that Rugby Union does need to keep going down this path. And is this solution of losing the flankers the way to go? Now, please do have an open mind, have a think about it. I think there's a lot of merits to this, and again, I'm not saying 100% this is what rugby should do, but I think it deserves more traction than what we've been giving it. Now, big change is always resisted. It's human nature. We want to stick with what we know, but if benefits are seen of those change, then previous animosity are soon forgotten. For example, say the bonus points coming in to the Six Nations. There was so much furore in the press saying you can't change the Six Nations, it was going to ruin the nature of it, the history of it, and I made a video at the time I remember saying it's been tried before, it works in pretty much every other sport, I can't see why it wouldn't work here, and it's been absolutely fine. Now, this suggestion of losing the flankers is definitely more radical, but the concept remains that if you quickly see the benefit, then that previous resistance will go away. So World Rugby's been kind of scrabbling around trying to make rugby more exciting attacking-wise, getting more space, more speed, more skill, less kicking. They've been trying to tweak those laws and have really drawn a major blank. There's been some successes, yes, but those big changes haven't happened. Kicking is still a massive component of the game, maybe overpowered, in fact probably overpowered, and how they're trying to combat that? Well, they're trying to make rules like the 50-22, which hasn't really had the desired effect. It's actually promoted really good kicking, which is great, but it hasn't opened up those vast spaces that they wanted to. And I think the simple thing is there's only two things you can do to make more space. That's to make the pitch bigger or the number of players smaller. Sure, you can play around, but to have a big effect, I think that's the way you have to go. And making a pitch bigger just isn't practical. You don't want to take up even more space. You don't want to change every pitch in the world. I don't think that one's a goer. So getting rid of players, is that possible? Well, I think maybe it is. And thinking of all the players you could lose, I think the only reasonable way to run the game of rugby and keep the laws the same is to lose the flankers. So yes, that's the suggestion I'm putting out there. Stop playing with the laws too much, maybe the odd tweak here and there if it's necessary, but really keep the laws the same, and very simply all you do is play exactly the same game but with two less players. So one of the big points of resistance to losing two players is it makes it too much like Rugby League. I've had that in the past, but 13 players doesn't make it the same as Rugby League. It's just a number. The laws are still incredibly different. Just having the same number of players in a sport doesn't make it the same. I mean, hurling's got 15 players. That doesn't make it the same as Rugby Union. So I just don't think that's an argument. I think that's an emotional response, not a logical one. So sorry there, but I don't think that it's the same as Rugby League because you lose two players is a good argument. And the second argument I think that would pop up is, where do all the flankers go? Do they suddenly lose their game? Are there going to be players leaving the sport because there's no position for them? Well, no, actually I think opposite. There's going to be more space. That build, that physical ability of a flanker is still going to be in massive demand. Getting over the ball, getting involved in the rucks is still going to be a huge part of the game. Sure, if you really like pushing on the side of the scrum, maybe it's not the game for you, but I really don't think many flankers play that position because that's what they want to do. They can still do all those traditional roles. Been thinking about it quite a lot, and I just don't think it's a way of getting rid of players. I don't think players will leave the game. In fact, I think it will attract players to the game. That generic sports build of a flanker will work all over the place. In the centres, fly half, wing, fullback, taller ones in the second row, shorter ones at hooker. I don't see it being a problem at all. In fact, I see it being a benefit because at lower levels, fielding 15 players sometimes is a stretch. It will make it easier to field teams in the first place. Now, what about scrum problems, I hear you say? And I think maybe there's a little more credence in this one, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. Sure, it's going to be harder to channel that ball back to the number 8's feet, and the ball may well squirt out of the scrum a bit more, but if it does, well, just play on. As long as it doesn't come straight out of the tunnel, just play on. You're going to have to be a bit more careful with your hooking, with your channeling, a bit more skillful. So I don't think that's a problem, but do let me know of things that I haven't thought of. Are there big scrum problems with losing the flankers? Line-out problems? Again, I don't think so. I'm not even sure you need to change the laws around the line-out much at all. Definitely, I think it gives more scope for ingenuity, putting players into the line-out from the back line as it was. So what are the advantages? Well, the big one is more space. Simply put, 2 less players, there's going to be more opportunities to attack, more likely to make breaks, more tempting to run from deeper or run the ball instead of kick the ball on occasions. Players will need to be more mobile, which might address the weight, the size issue in rugby, lessen the collision slightly, making people more athletic, more fit rather than just bigger. Props and second rows body shapes are still going to be needed for the scrums, for the line-outs. They're just going to be a bit fitter, a bit lower body fat. I don't see that being a problem at all. And if you combine that with a lower number of subs from 8 to say 5 or lower, then again players are going to have to be fitter. You're not going to be having players just conditioned to play 50, 60 minutes then come off, and I think it's going to make the game a lot better. So seriously, I encourage you to have a good think about this. Lose the emotion for a bit, lose the historical excuse of because that's the way it's always been, because I never think that's a good reason, and just have a look purely logically. Would this work? Would it have the desired effect? Would it stop the need for tinkering with all the laws? Would you want to play this game if you're a flanker? Would you be excited about playing a 13-a-side? I think you'd be more excited about playing that sort of game. So, hey, I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying we should definitely do this. And if the comment section wants to explode, fantastic. I'd love to know what you think. But I think it's worth putting out there. I'm going to be brave and say it. I don't know if many people are saying it with this much detail. If you like these sorts of videos as well, please do subscribe and like. That would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, love to know what you guys think. And until next time, I'll see you then.